So Luke, you say freedom is the most important thing. But I say enslaving others is the best thing you can do. I'm being forced to do this, by the way.
In my personal moral view, I find it difficult to find something inherently morally wrong with slavery.
So you're pro-slavery?
No.
But wouldn't permitting the existence of slavery make you pro-slavery?
Not necessarily. About the existence of Asians, but that doesn't mean I'm pro-Asian.
Why are you for the existence of Asians?
I'm not against it.
Why are you not against it?
Why should I
You tell me. What's your opinion on free will, Luke?
Free will is a necessary biological illusion.
So it's not real?
It's not real in the sense of an object being real. It's not real in the sense of an a priori knowledge, like logic or space or time. It is as real as a dream. But of course, a dream is just as real as reality. Because reality is just an object. It's just that there's a certain lack of awareness in dreams and a certain lack of continuity.
have said previously that freedom is the most important thing to you. Why is that?
That's... I can see why I said that, but that's not true.
So your
Freedom is, I think, a good moral basis. I think freedom is part of morality. I think it's one of the moral aims. No, it's not a part of morality. It's one of the ethical aims in our society, and I think it's a good one.
do you care
But it can't really be realized.
Why do you say that?
Because it's like really hard to quantify, but it is something good to shoot for, I guess.
So you feel it is good to pursue from an ethical. So you're saying you can't explain. Explain.
Well, I can't say that Hitler was good, you know? Because he did cause, the Holocaust, and that was bad.
Mm-hmm. He did kill millions.
He was kind of a crazy occultist. He was sort of interested in German high culture, and it is kind of a travesty that the Nazi regime has caused the high culture of Germany, which is some of the best high culture that has ever existed, has caused it to be viewed with a little bit of disdain in the West. You can't wholeheartedly love Wagner anymore, because of his association with Hitler. So, yeah, those are the main reasons why I don't like Hitler. Mainly the genocide thing, but also the ruining of German culture by being, so bad.
Why would you not
What do you mean?
be so full-heartedly interested in high German culture? Even when society says, well, that's a bit weird. Why would you care?
Why would I care?
Yeah.
Because it's arguably... Listen, French high culture, British high culture, it's good. Okay, and I think French and British fiction is well above German fiction. But German philosophy and music is generally a lot better than French or British or Italian music or philosophy. Especially in the 19th century.
you're not putting your heart into enjoying this high culture you esteem.
What do you mean?
I mean, as you just said, people would think you were weird if you were into Wagner and put your whole heart and soul into it. Because of what the Nazis did. Are you saying you're bent to the will of others just to not enjoy something that you find?
No, I'm saying that it's caused less people to enjoy it than would have otherwise. There's absolutely no tragedy. No, there is a bit of a tragedy. There's a bit of a tragedy in every moment you live after the moment you become aware that you're going to die. But, you know, it's just a bit of a pity what's happened to the understanding of the great works of German art because of the Nazis. But, you know, a similar thing has happened to, like, Chinese culture. You know, and because, like, Chinese culture is more distant from ours, it was already more distant, but it is true that kind of, like, you know, Mao and stuff causes the high Chinese culture to be less revered. Which you know, you look into the German high culture, you look into these philosophers and composers and things, they were very interested in Eastern whatever, especially, you know, towards the turn of the 19th century into the 20th century. It's like, you know, politics always gets in the way of truth.
Luke, the Western understanding of the Eastern religions, such as Buddhism, come from Western sources upon these topics.
Yes.
Do you not think we can have a false understanding of their beliefs and teachings that we put upon them?
Western culture certainly also has a false understanding of Judaism. And yet the Western culture's interpretation of Judaism arguably is more important than whenever the Jews think of it. But whatever philosophical truth can be found in the Upanishads, and, you know, if it's the same philosophical truth that, you know, whatever German philosopher discovers and they find that it resonates in both texts, like, there's no problem with that.
What if the westernization of these religions, though, leads us to a false view of them, and they're actually completely different in reality?
Yeah, but so what? If we've arrived at a better religion that suits us,
So there's an
even if it's a bastard version of their religion, so what?
Is it an objectively better religion?
No, but it's objectively better for us.
Objectively better. Why is it objectively better for us?
Because we made it and it's the thing that suits us.
So different groups have different needs.
Yeah.
Okay. So if different groups have different needs, does that not imply there are major differences between groups?
Not necessarily major differences, but certainly differences. And it's a pity. You know, nature, the will in nature. It's sort of true that there's a harmony in nature, you know. There's a harmony in nature. Everything works for everything. There's a beautiful circle of life. But simultaneously, this circle is also the competition for resources. And ultimately, those forms that are better at getting those resources will overpower and kill those forms that are less good at getting those resources. Humanity is just that part of it which is able to have abstract notions. And then, can do all kinds of crazy shit. And maybe the quality of having abstract notions is the highest. I know, that it's the best form of life at doing things, could be. Because, the speed at which humans can accomplish things is way faster than anything else. But also people kill themselves and shit. And so nationalities and all the killing and the striving that comes from nationalities just kind of reflects that part of nature. But there's only one will. This is kind of a silly idea. Well, it's not a silly idea. But the will is that thing in itself. It is that thing that is what enables you to be alive. Or no, that's not it. It's you are a subject and you experience the world as objects. And the will is will is the best word for it, but it's that thing. It's that thing that is beyond all a priori perception, and it's that thing that you can't know. And it's that thing that causes everything. The will applies to non-material, non-living things. And so so the will causes suffering, obviously. And there's kind of the duality of it where it causes the harmony of nature and all that shit, but it's also constant killing and constant striving after, blind striving after whatever. There's no object at the will. The will has no tangible object. But because it's outside of all a priori conceptions, it's outside of time and space and causality, and even outside of multiplicity, which is the reasoning for why the will, there's only the will. There's not even one will. It's even wrong to say that there's one will, because it's that beyond anything. It is the thing in itself. And Chopinhowzer does even say in one line, he's proving the will and that it does all this shit is equally as absurd as proving God. But you can see that we're talking in a more neutral sense. We're trying to not apply any morality to the will. And so the will is that thing. It's that thing at the edge of consciousness. And it kind of says Schopenhauer kind of reasons, you can only know that you have a subjective experience. I can't ever know that you really have a subjective experience. As far as I know, you're just an object. And equally so, I can never know if I'm the only thing in the universe that has this will. I'm the only thing that can ever know. But it seems like it makes sense. And there's no way to ever prove anything with this. But it seems like it makes sense that everything has this will. And that this will is the thing in itself that causes everything to do everything. And the forces of nature are just descriptions of ways that the will act under particular circumstances. And the lowest like common denominator of the forces of nature would be the perfect explanation of physics. So like one of these forces might be, I don't know, gravity. And so if gravity was the highest form and the most efficient idea of everything, the whole universe would just be like a ball that would be continually pressing in on itself. But gravity isn't the best at doing things. Atoms are better, for whatever reason. There's probably other forces in atoms and shit, but atoms are better. And it's kind of like every form of life, every kind of, element or whatever, is just like... He uses the word higher form, which is a misleading term because it isn't true that, like, evolution leads to humanity because humanity is the highest form. That's like almost a religious level to it, but it's like humanity is just like one of the best, you know? Like being conscious, it seems like it's one of the best. It might not, it might be an evolutionary fluke. But like, yeah, we have a subjective experience. Animals probably have a subjective experience, but we can think in the abstract and we can use memory. And we have pretty much conquered all of the lower parts of us. You know, we could basically conquer the vegetative part of us by choosing not to breathe. You know, you can choose not to breathe at will. That's crazy. Because that's completely contrary, unless you're like going underwater, to what like is good for you. You can choose to kill yourself. And once you recognize all this stuff with the will, it's like, well, why not kill yourself? And the truth is, there's no good reason not to kill yourself. You know, you can find some kind of beauty in art or in the suffering of things. And that maybe that's enough of a reason. But like the Stoics, he talks about Stoicism a bit. Like the Stoics have no reason not to kill yourself. Like in Stoicism, the goal is to reach a state of ataraxia or something, which is like the state of, it's kind of similar to nirvana, but it's like attaining that peace of mind where you don't care what happens to you. And he kind of recognizes like if I told you, like, you are never going to scale Mount Everest. You know, like, that you wouldn't be crushed by that, right? Yeah. But if I had told you since you were a little kid that one day you're gonna get to scale Mount Everest and see the top of Mount Everest, and then I irrefutably prove that you couldn't, you would like feel bad about that. But that's like true for like every desire in the world. If every desire isn't cultivated or stimulated, we don't feel anything about it. And the truth is that we can't control the world really at all. And so if your circumstances are like shitty, which inevitably they will be at some point, or maybe you'll, realize that like everything you ever wanted to accomplish won't actually make you happy, and that once you get it, you'll just be bored, which is one of the worst states to be in. You just have a state of ennui. It's like you can realize that applies to everything. And so Stoicism's solution to, well, then what should I do, is the cultivation of virtue. But Stoicism is often confused as a kind of virtue ethics, which is more like what Kant's idea of practical reason being the basis of ethics. I don't really understand Kant's philosophy there. I think it's bullshit. Like, I don't think it really works. But the Stoics believe that in the cultivation of virtue, you can do something that's like neutral enough that won't inspire hopes, and in the cultivation of virtue and the acquisition of knowledge, that's where you find peace. But if a bunch of terrible shit happens to you, and for whatever reason you're in a situation where you can't cultivate knowledge, you can't learn things, there's absolutely nothing virtuous you can do, Stoicism is just like, yeah, kill yourself. Because that's the most reasonable thing to do, if you view happiness as the meaning of life. So, on the kitchen wall, at my house. There's the cross up there, right? And it's like got like the world on the cross. And there's a John Lennon lyric in one of his songs where he says that God is a measure of our pains. And if you try to apply these cosmological ideas that people like to exist in the universe, like the idea God is love, right? That's a line in the letters of John. You know, people love that. People go crazy for that shit. Try you understand what we mean by the will at this point, right?
Yeah.
Well, like try subbing in the word love for the will. You'll find that it's true a lot of the time for humans that like love and will are kind of like the same thing. And I tried playing around with the semantics of this. I certainly love music, right? But like I don't love shitting, right? But I could choose to love shitting. So with humans, there's kind of a level where you have to choose in the abstract to love the things you love. But like, I don't know if I love jacking off. You know? I don't know, that seems weird to say that you love jacking off. I certainly like jacking off, but I don't love jacking off. I mean, you could choose to love it, and if people do, that's like disgusting. But now I'm kind of creating the division between lust and love. And in my mind, it seems difficult to have sex with an actual person and not like love the person, but I guess if you were really used to fucking whores, it could be true that you would have like the same moral value fucking a whore as you would jacking off. But in humans, but like if we like take away the semantic issues with the word love, is it true that everything we seek after we love? In some way, is like all wanting love, or it's at least will. So, you know, in that way, you could say that like everything is love, but it's like not true because will is more accurate. But you know, if you try subbing in God, like God is the will, like God is the will of everything. Like I think that kind of works, and I think that's like where the truth of like a lot of the Christian philosophy is. You put God in as the world, because now that we understand the will, we understand that simultaneously everything is wanting and everything is suffering all the time. In some way, if you want to put a negative word on it, but then I don't know if maybe suffering is unique to animals. Maybe suffering arises when at the animal level. I don't know if plants suffer, but it's kind of like it is true that like God in that way is a measure of our pains as the will, and I think that's the truth that Christianity is getting at. That God is suffering. You know, and it's like he's, you know, if you want to get more into the theology of it, this is where it stops being like true philosophically, that God is also choosing to suffer for us, and that somewhere in the beauty of his suffering is our salvation. I think, because Chopinhowzer, ultimately the answer I think he's going to give is that you have to find the expression of the will in art in order to achieve peace, and that one of the kinds of that art is virtue, which would mean that the most virtuous thing you could do is like make art or just consume art, which music in his mind is like the most abstract version of the will. You know, the sounds I'm making now, they aren't really anything. Like there's nothing in the natural world that corresponds to these sounds. And that there's like a kind of like funny beauty about it. And like, this isn't even planned out at all. Like I'm just like I'm literally strumming random notes. But maybe that's fate. So, there's some stuff. Christianity gives you a man in a state of supreme suffering, but you find beauty in it. Stoicism says to find beauty in the cultivation of virtue. It's ultimately all about beauty, really. It's all about aesthetics. I feel like today people are losing their appreciation for aesthetics, which according to everything I've been rattling on about, it would seem that aesthetics is the most important thing for human beings. And we seem to have increasingly headed into a realm of ugly aesthetics. Now, this isn't to say that I don't like avant-garde art. In fact, that's what we're making right now. But, like, would the world be, like, that much better if it was, like, beautiful aesthetically to the most people possible? Or maybe it is. I mean, maybe people are just generally stupid. And we need varying degrees of art for varying people. Maybe that's why we need Christianity. I don't belong to this world, I'm just a passing through. You gotta come on up to the house. A house without any love in it is not a home. It's the house where nobody lives. What's he building in there? There's enough acid in that bag to kill a horse. I hear moans, low moans. What's he building in there? He used to get mail all the time, but he doesn't have any friends in town. He used to have a wife. What's he building in there?